Okay, why don't we get started? Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us from around the world for this special webinar. My name is Betty Zhang, and I am the Associate Director of Admissions here at CBS. I oversee admissions for our 3 specialized Master of Science programs, and I will be your moderator for today's panel. So Neha, Cait, Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. I know I speak for all of us on this webinar when I say that we're very excited to hear about your experience at CBS and how you have used, what you learned in the MS programs in your careers over the last 5 years or so. So to get us started, could you please start by introducing yourselves? Where you're from, where did you go for your undergrad, what you studied there, and what you have been doing after graduating from your respective MS programs. Neha, why don't we start with you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Neha Mubeen. As you can tell from the accent, I'm from India. I joined the Columbia MSM Masters of Marketing Science program back in 2019, right after undergrad. And then right after Columbia as well, back then it was a 1-year program, and I was very lucky to land a role at as a senior analyst for one of the big 3 media agencies of the world. And I've just been there ever since, growing from a senior analyst to managing, my own team of senior analysts to managing teams across different brands. Now as a director of data and analytics 5 years later.
Great, thank you. Cait?
Hi guys, thanks so much for being here. My name is Cait Walsh. I am representing the MS in Financial Economics. I'm originally from California, so wrong coast, but I think I'm stuck here now in New York. I went to the University of Oklahoma, which is smack in the middle of the country for anyone who may not be from here. I majored in math and economics. Then started my career with a few years at the Federal Reserve Board in DC, doing some kind of financial market analysis and policy research. Came to the MSFE, graduated in 2020, which is not the best time to be entering the job market, but it did work out. I spent some time at Blackstone, went to the sell side, which most people don't do, but I went to B of A for a few years, and I'm now a vice president at Nomura Securities. I work in global equity sales and trading, doing kind of portfolio construction and risk management for institutional investors.
Great, thank you. And we have Ben.
Hey guys, my name is Ben. I'm representing MSAFA Fundamental Analysis Program. I did my master in University of Alabama, which is in the very deep south of the States. I was majoring in math and accounting. Then I started my career as actuary in New York City, AIG. Then I moved to JP Morgan. Then later I moved to a healthcare private equity. Then I started at MSAFA for a year and a half. Then I transitioned to accounting PhD, also in the CBS.
Great, thank you all again for being here. So many of our audience members are currently in the process of either actively considering or applying to a graduate degree program. So could you think back to, where they are now? So probably for you guys, 6-7 years back, to when you were applying to, the MS program at CBS. Why did you want to study in a MS program, and how did you decide on your respective programs at CBS? Maybe Cait, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, sure. So like I mentioned, I started my career working at the Fed. It was kind of the perfect introductory role because it was really a research position for people kind of fresh out of undergrad who may be interested in going on to grad school. And I figured that grad school was probably in my future, but I had no idea if that was going to be a PhD, if it was more of an MS. I didn't know what field I wanted it to be in, right? I had studied math and econ. I also thought maybe I liked finance, I liked public policy. So I thought I probably shouldn't spend 7 years of my life on something that I'm not totally sure is for me. So that work experience, taught me really quickly that what I was really interested in was in financial markets, financial economics. I didn't have much really kind of finance specific exposure from my undergraduate education. It was more liberal arts oriented. And I also learned that I was not remotely patient enough to do a PhD. So credit to Ben, because I couldn't do it. I admire those who can, but I knew that industry was probably better suited for me. So then I started to look at master's programs in finance, and I quickly realized that most of them are a little bit on the truncated side, right? Maybe 12 months. And they tend to be geared towards folks who haven't done much in finance, either in their career or academically, and are kind of looking for that rebrand so that they can then go into consulting or go be an IB analyst and kind of kick off their career from there. It's almost like a 5th year of undergrad, right, where you're just kind of getting your feet wet so that you can then kind of reposition your career. And I was looking for something a little bit more rigorous, more theoretical, right? I didn't want to just end up in electives about like, what is an option? I wanted something a little bit more fundamentally oriented. And there's really not so many programs in the master's space that do that. Columbia is obviously one of them. And I thought it was the perfect mix of what I was looking for because it was industry oriented. So there are practical courses on how to work with data, how to, even the CMC, right, helping you think through internships and career paths. But then you're also taking PhD finance coursework, right? So it's very rigorous. I regretted my decision at times because it was extremely challenging, but that's exactly what I was looking for. And that's kind of equipped me now that I'm in industry, right? That I have that strong foundation academically that I can now bring to the workplace. So in that way, I really found Columbia's MSFE to be very unique among the master's programs that are available in kind of the MFin space.
Great. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
I can go. It's okay. Kind of similar to Katie, I first, decided to pursue an MS degree mainly to build a stronger foundation in both theoretical and practical aspect of finance and accounting. After working in the field for a few years, you start to realize, more advanced analytical skills and more advanced financial expertise plays critical roles, especially if you want to, be success in the field. And back that time, I guess, I think MSAFA was the first year they started taking students, and I learned that, wow, there's a new program, in the world that offers both PhD class and MBA classes that give us both theoretical and practical aspects. And the program is focused on fundamental analysis, which is essentially value investing, which is, in my back then was very interesting to me. That's pretty much what I decided to study MS program. And why MSAFA? First it was the mainly the curriculums. So I guess each of the programs offer a specialized curriculum. I guess MSAFA really that aligns well with my career goals. So I guess for me, who was back then, profession was mostly investment, private equity, rigorous training in accounting and valuation really helped. Yeah, that'd be all. Thanks.
I think for me, I was coming into the decision without any work experience. All I knew was that I was good at math. I found digital marketing fun, and I wanted to do something together. So when I did my undergrad in India, it was a liberal arts college, so luckily we were able to pick a whole bunch. And so I double majored in digital marketing and economics. So when I had my interview for the MSM program, I kind of call it as the perfect marriage of, whatever I've been doing for the past 4 years, which is true. And it was, part of the reason of why I picked this one program. But the reason why I picked this one program amongst, the rest is also a couple of other reasons. One, frankly, honest reason was that I was going to walk out of this program with the Columbia badge. And it was something that's going to make people raise their eyebrows, regardless of whether they knew what Columbia was, what Columbia Business School was, whether they knew what MSM was, or whether they were living in New York or the rest of the world. So that kind of immediate eyebrow raise was something that I definitely wanted to do, because if I just went down the classic marketing strategy path, a brown woman of color like me, there's no real major edge to that. Now, beyond just the Columbia name, because the whole bunch of people will have the Columbia name behind them. Now, beyond just the Columbia name was also where Columbia was situated, which is New York. I had other friends with me in my undergrad, close friends, who were also coming to the US to take on further studies, and in similar business school universities. But the speed at which I saw company visits, office tours, big shots from all these huge tech companies coming and giving their chats. The speed at which I saw it in New York compared to a place like, let's say, Cincinnati was astounding. Conversations like that in Columbia and Columbian halls was like weekly, whereas in places like Cincinnati, it became like a monthly big picture thing. So think about the sheer volume of exposure you're going to get with weekly conversations, so 52 different conversations, rather than monthly, so 12 different conversations. So that alone was a huge, big brag point that I had whenever I talked to my friends. And then I think that the US immigration system was also giving me a little bit of an edge amongst the other markets. Now, again, this is something that only the immigrants in the crowd are going to kind of relate to. But when we are going to be spending so much money coming all the way to a different country, we don't really want to go back with nothing in our hands and say, yep, we got a degree. Yes, a degree is great, but we want a job. And so I thought that the US job environment and the system in which it was going to put us in as immigrants was also a little bit more favorable than other markets. US, I'm sure you guys all know, it gives you a 1-year STEM OPT period. But thanks to, I think, all of our technical degrees, we get 3 additional years, which means 4 years of work experience, 4 years of waking your company, apply for a green card. So the chances of success of setting up your life over here seemed a lot fairer and a lot more easier and a lot more likely than my friends who were, choosing to go to the UK, for example. And then honestly, the silliest reasons, I'm someone who gets influenced quite a bit by TV, and Gossip Girl and Sex in the City and everything else was a huge influencing moment for me. And who doesn't want to live that life if it's even for a year of your life? So that, I think, was the true reasons beyond just the marriage of my minors of why I picked Columbia to come of all places.
That's awesome. We appreciate your honesty. Okay, so you started talking about the MS experience. So and a couple of you touched on kind of the academic curriculum. That is definitely something that we're very proud of, right? Kind of the marriage of the the PhD, MS, and MBA classes. So I'm curious to hear about what was your favorite class that you took at CBS, and what is a class that you found to be kind of most useful in your job or after graduating?
I'll kick it off. I'm already on mute, I guess. I think these 2 classes that I'm about to talk about, I keep coming back to, regardless of whether I was like a senior analyst back 5 years ago or whether I'm now, with 5 years under my belt. And I think these 2 classes are strategic consumer insights and managerial negotiations. So when you ask this question about what was fun versus what was useful, I first wanted to give the title of what was useful to strategic consumer insights because it was a class, and I think it still is a live class, that actually makes you do a live company like project that you can brag about on your resume. Now that one project, sure, it was a class project and we did really well, but it really helped me, I think, land the role at UM. So truly calling out that project on my resume, being able to describe what I learned, the technical skills that I learned in that project, and being able to apply it to a very industry-facing product. I think it was a project with LG. So, that also I think helped. It really helped exemplify what I learned in that class. And then managerial negotiations was a class that I initially called fun because it was literally a role play class. The professor would come in and make you enact all these different situations, like you're a manager who is negotiating for a pay bump, or you're at a store and a guy is not really ready to make a deal with you. And it's every introvert's worst nightmare. I remember feeling really awkward then. But now, even to this date, I sit back and I think to all of those little techniques that I learned, all the words that I learned, like BATNA and sandbagging, which are all these like clever little techniques that I used to basically get my way. So by that definition, managerial negotiations has also been a very useful course, especially as I'm now also managing and negotiating. But it was a fun course, and if you guys all get a chance to actually join the course and take this up, definitely do, because the streams the impact is much more beyond just what's in your class and who you're talking to at work. Talking to your landlord, that course has got you covered.
I love that you picked a class from our core curriculum and then also an elective class. So, like that really kind of showcase the flexibility that we have and really kind of the inclusive experience that you can get.
So for me, I mean, kind of broadly speaking about the MSFE and finance kind of generally, right? You kind of have your core classes, big data in finance and microeconomics, if you choose to kind of go down that path, econometrics. And then once you get into more of the elective space in your second year, most classes can be grouped into either kind of corporate finance or asset pricing. And you will probably like one more than the other. It's just normal. I was definitely an asset pricing person. So I loved kind of the theoretical asset pricing, which Harry Mamaisky taught. He's now the director of the program. So I'm not sure how much time he gets to go back into the classroom these days. But it was crucial for me just in understanding the basics of asset pricing. And it's extremely relevant for my job today, as was empirical asset pricing, which is taught by Dr. Van Nijverberg. He's amazing, and that class is excellent. And again, super, super relevant, right? For my job, I'm kind of working with equity risk models to look at kind of, anticipated risk of equity portfolios and performance attribution. It's really like the empirical application of asset pricing theory. So I don't think that I'd be very good at my job without those classes. They were fun, but they were also challenging. So I'll pick like a really fun one, which was, it was cross-listed between the business school and the law school. And it was focusing on kind of the causes and regulatory responses to financial crises. Total blast, amazing readings, just tangential to anything else, but I found it personally super interesting. And again, because it was kind of business school students and law students, you got different perspectives from the people that you're normally in class with. You get a different set of professors. And it's one of the really cool things about coming to Columbia, coming to this program, and kind of the flexibility that you can have when you pick those elective classes.
Okay, my turn. For useful classes, I think in my mind, I think the most useful class is the valuation and this financial statement analysis. But the PhD, it's a PhD class, or it's nine something, I forgot. So what's so unique about that class is, for people who been working banking or working valuation before, the bunch of models we work with every day. The DCF, discount, DDM, and CAPM, all that stuff. So this class, instead of not only just teach you how the model works, but it actually give you the papers where the models were originally from. So you actually study the in and out, the origin, the theory behind it, like the empirical side of it, and the importance of it. It's actually, in my mind, what shows the theoretical aspect of the program. Then later in your MBA classes, for example, applied value investing, seminar in value investing, a bunch of other classes, you can actually apply what you learn from the theoretical aspect of the curriculum. Fun classes. In my mind, I really agree with Neha. The managerial negotiation is really interesting. I think every time they give you a case, not a case you get a case. You choose to be either the buyer or seller to negotiate over something. Sometimes it's a product, sometimes it's real estate, sometimes you do like a negotiation. You sometimes experience little principal agent theory. You have a agent that represent you, that negotiate for you. So how do you work with a relationship between your agent? How does the agent they work on a deal, cut a deal between themselves? It's actually fun. Another really interesting class I do like a lot is value investing with legend. So that class, you do have the chance to listen the legendary value investors who are the big name people in the industry to talk about their either active trade or some all the fun stories goes behind their professional life. It's very interesting. I guess I think you might my time of taking the class, I got to see Car Icon, Howard Marks, a bunch of other people. It was really interesting. Another class I do like a lot is global macroeconomic investing. So for what it's a half a term class, but what is interesting about that one is because every in the first 10-15 minutes of every time we go into the classroom, the professor will give a scenario. Like they say, okay, this is, for example, February last year. Then the stock price went up 10%, the gold went up 5%, the bond went down, whatever percent. They ask you, like, what do you think the oil price is, the commodity price is, and what's the reason behind it? Was the inflation going up and down? Was the growth up and down? Like, they really test you on the macroeconomic scenarios. It was very interesting. That'd be all. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. It feels like everyone who have joined this call will now be taking managerial negotiations, no matter what program they're in. Another aspect of our MS program that I think, Neha, you touched upon already is the New York City location. When I talk to current students too, they tell me the city really played a big part in their experience here. Could you talk about, how our New York City location has played a role in your experience? I know, Neha, you had touched on this. I don't know if there's anything else to add, or, if the other two just want to chime in.
I mean, I'll just reiterate it. I got to see the insides of like companies that I just never thought I'd even enter. It wasn't just cool because I was getting architectural inspiration from them and interior decoration inspiration from them. It was also cool because I was actually rubbing elbows and I was talking to these people who were making the hiring decisions and understanding what they were not really getting in their current pool of candidates. It's genuinely just that one thing that drew me to this program, that I could go from one room talking to Google to another room talking to Meta. And the reason that I'm only bringing up these names is because back in my time, back in 2019, tech and product management jobs were all the rage and all the craze, and so those names obviously like stuck out to me. Now I think every single every single generation has their own craze. I think a few years after was consulting, but that too is something that you will get a lot more and a lot better of in New York rather than my example was Cincinnati. So yeah, that's my stance at least. Cait and Ben, I'd love to hear what you think.
Sorry, I can go. And
Oh,
maybe you saw my cat's tail in the background. Yeah, I mean, for me, being in New York was absolutely crucial. Probably best exemplified by the fact that I ended up doing an in-semester internship at Bank of America during my first semester in the program, which I don't think is allowed anymore, and I would not recommend. I didn't really sleep for 4 months, but it was amazing professionally, because that in-semester internship turned into my summer internship between years 1 and 2, and then that turned into a full-time job that I actually started there 2 years after graduating the program, but I had built such a good network there while I was an intern, that I was able to come in at a relatively high level. I was promoted relatively quickly just because of those relationships that I had built, now over the course of 6 years. And you cannot overestimate the importance of your network. Every single job that I have gotten pretty much has come from, knowing the right person at the right time. And New York is exactly the right place to build that network organically, right? I mean, I know we all know how to cold email and message people on LinkedIn, and that's part of it. But a big part of it too is just having the opportunity to be at, speaker events like Neha mentioned, or maybe you get to do an in-semester internship, you go to a presentation, you get coffee with someone. That is going to be super valuable. And yeah, I think I owe a lot of my, career after the fact to the fact that I literally just was in the right place at the right time for that first internship at B of A, that kind of, got me in the door of the street in a way that would have been difficult from far away. I have good friends who are at really, really excellent business schools in other cities. You can probably guess which ones. And recruiting is really hard when you're not on site. So I can't emphasize it enough.
Yeah, I love to hear the story of, an in-semester internship turning into a summer and then turning into a full-time. I feel like, that's great, but I will kind of let everyone know in the audience that we strongly, strongly, strongly discourage you to do a in-semester internship in your fall semester.
Don't do it. I can definitely attest to that.
Start in your second semester. Great, thank you. Ben?
Yeah. Yeah, New York is great. When I first graduated my undergrad, I had 2 job offers. One's in New York, one's in Boston. So I picked New York, like a lot of other young people did, and I never regret that decision. So New York definitely provide a lot of opportunities that I actively, consistently, take advantage of. We got the opportunity to attend, industry events, lectures, company presentations. They're all right in the city. We take subway, like it's all 20 minutes away. That's just an advantage not other school can have. So also being in the city really helped me, build a relationship. I can much easier to see all my old colleagues, my old friends. Even though I'm still in school, I school them, they're working, they change career. It's really just easy. So people to get together and catch up. A couple of clubs or a couple of places I go a lot, not school wise, just benefit being in school. First one is the Economic Club of New York. I really love that. They have awesome speakers, really, let's go. Highly recommend. And, Asian Society, they bunch of art events. Sometimes I go to museums, it's very, very interesting. Another thing I do want a lot is New York Horological Society. So I like watches. So sometimes, it's part of my hobbies. So really, I can emphasize more. If you do not only just career-wise, it will benefit you, but also whatever your hobby is, your interest in, New York will always, yeah, place to be.
Yes, yes, New York has it all.
Not at all.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, the location really opened doors to, many professional opportunities that all three of you talked about. And another great resource that we have here for our students is the Career Management Center. So, Cait and Neha, did you leverage the CMC during your time at CBS? And if so, like, what was your experience with them? And then Ben, you decided to stay in academia. And did you always know that you wanted to pursue a PhD program after MSAFA? And then, during the program, what did you do to prepare yourself to apply to a PhD program? Maybe we will start with the CMC part first.
I'll kick it off since I'm already unmuted, but the CMC was something that I don't think I used enough in the beginning until the job hunt and the race began. And luckily, my friend actually recommended that I go to the CMC for interview prep. Because I think the American culture is quite different from at least what I'm used to. Getting used to the interview questions, getting used to the kinds of questions that they, trying to suss out of you. Telling it in a particular format, the STAR format, and everything else is going to only be given to you if you go to the CMC. And I have this this one specific memory of preparing for an interview. I went to the CMC. There was a person back there called Sandra. And she was truly the one who kind of opened my eyes into how amazing interviews can be with the smallest of answers. I think I went in there with the attitude of, yeah, I already know how to answer questions. I have my mind map in place. I'm good. But Sandra kind of turned a 5-minute conversation where I was pretending, again, like product management was all the craze. So I was applying for a product management role then. And she was like, okay, hang on, you know all these answers, that's fine. Let's slow it down. What are you watching on TV these days? And something as inconsequential as that, as what are you watching on TV these days? I don't even think I even thought of what my actual TV habits were. I just picked the first thing that came to my head, which was the bus stop sign that was right outside of Columbia. And at that time, the Property Brothers were playing on there. I mean, it was the little Property Brothers out of home ad. I said that in the call, Property Brothers. And she was like, great, use that in her answer. And she was able to use this one random show that I had just pulled out of my butt. And she just was able to say, use that in her interview, bring that up and say, that's why you're in product management. And that's why you're such a big fan of product management, because you like to see projects go from end to end and see the whole process. And that little thing was like, I was just there staring at her with an open mouth because, of course, that's a fabulous way of bringing it back, bringing small talk back to why you're the best candidate for the role and why they have to go and give you the job at the end of the call. And it's these kinds of conversations that honestly didn't even strike me before I even entered the room. And so if there's one advice that I can actually pass it along, use the CMC a lot faster and a lot earlier than just when the rat race begins for jobs, because it's these random conversations that are going to spark, creativity in your own answers, and it's going to help you stand out a little bit more.
Yeah, agree with everything that Neha said. I think they were a tremendous resource, definitely in terms of interview prep, and that might be especially important if you're relatively new to American culture. I know that was a big learning curve for a lot of my classmates, and CMC was really good about walking through, I remember there was one session on like the rules of American football, because it's finance, so it's probably going to come up. So, things like that seem small, but like Neha said, they really can be important. And kind of greasing the conversational wheels. Also super helpful with resume. And I know that sounds basic, and we all have a resume, and it's probably fine. It really matters more than you think, and they've seen thousands of them. So utilize them for that. And then in terms of job hunting, right, they'll be crucial for if you're seeking an internship, especially for the MSFE between years 1 and 2. They can really be helpful in kind of identifying opportunities, firms that have maybe been good partners with CBS in the past, places where alumni have landed, right? So you can maybe rely on that network. And same thing for the full-time job search. That in-semester internship that I mentioned was 100% through CMC. Literally, they called me and said, "Are you interested?" And it wouldn't have been on my radar at all without them. So use them, talk to them, and I again echo Neha that don't wait until it's like February and you really need an internship, or else you're going to end up doing research for like Dr. Johannes all summer, which is great, but maybe not what you had in mind. Go early, get to know them, help them to know you, so that they can kind of best position you for success when it does come time to start looking for jobs.
Great, thank you. Ben, your PhD experience, we do have, every year a handful of students who are coming to our MS programs, hoping to get into a really great PhD program. Yeah, so love to hear about, did you always know, and then what your experience has been.
All right. First, I didn't always know that I want to pursue a PhD at all. So initially, my goal was really just to strengthen my expertise in finance accounting, so I can do better in the industry. But later on, after classes and professor and all that, I found myself really increasingly fascinated by the theoretical aspect, and fascinated by how the things actually work aspect of finance accounting. So so that's what mostly triggers it. So the growing interest in research, then later have guidance from professors really solidify that my decisions that I really want to pursue a PhD. The second part of the question, I guess how to prepare. First, I think the most importantly, well, they are pretty important, I guess. Firstly, is to build a strong foundation, both quantitative method and your research skills, which you can get that from MS programs. By doing that, you can take more PhD focused classes. Just a couple examples: econ theory 1, 2, 3, 4, PhD topics in accounting research, PhD accounting information economics. The other econ class such as time theory, panel data, they all can be very helpful for you. So those the advanced coursework will be absolutely helpful. Secondly, I think after you decide that you want to do a PhD, make sure you attend academic seminars that is being held by each department, mostly on Fridays. So in Columbia, we don't have classes on Friday normally, so you can actually go attend, participate, and see what it's actually like, academic seminars. Third, I think the early to engage in research project with professors, with faculties, the better, I guess. That give you a hands-on experience, give you a much clearer sense what the academia is, and if that's really what you want to do. Yeah, that'd be all. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Now that we kind of, talked to specifics about the different aspect of the program, I'd like you to take a step back and think about your experience overall, right? What is kind of your favorite memory of your time as a MS student at CBS?
All right. I start this time. So besides coursework and everything else, I think my favorite part of the school is have the opportunity to meet the great speakers, to meet the people that I wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to chance to meet in my life. So during my time here, so I met Henry Kissinger. So before he passed away, I think that was an astonishing experience to listen what he, after he accomplished so much in his life. Jim Scorman from Morgan Stanley, Steve Schwarzman from Blackstone, and Eric Schmidt from Google, so former Google CEO. So I guess the speakers, and also if you attend the class that I mentioned earlier, Value Investing with Legend, you get also opportunity to meet all the other value investing famous guys. So I think that's my favorite part of it, other than coursework, other than academia side of it.
I'll continue it, I guess. My favorite part, December break, not for the fact that it was a holiday, but actually because during December break, and I'm pretty sure it's still going on, all the clubs that even Ben, I think, was talking about. Columbia has a whole bunch of clubs. There's media and marketing, there's tech and business group, there's a whole bunch. December is when all those clubs actually begin to group you off into other peers and actually take you to the SF coast to go and do, again, company visits depending on that particular club. And so in December that I went to, I went with the tech and business group, again, because I was a huge tech nerd then. And so I actually was able to go to Apple and Google and to Facebook and their actual real headquarters and, talk to the people there. Yes, networking was the name of the game over there, but genuinely the whole experience that Columbia kind of took care of, because it was all kind of managed by the members of the group, going to SF for the first time on my own, grooming up with these other MBA students, which ended up being very close friends of mine, even to this date, meeting, of course, all of those company execs and being able to talk to them genuinely was a highlight of the whole year. And I think regardless of who I talk to, whether it's on LinkedIn or email, I still recommend join a club, go for that if you guys can afford it, because it's going to change your life in some way or the other.
Yeah, and I'll wrap up. I mean, I think, one, you definitely cannot overstate the quality of the faculty from whom you will, by whom you'll be taught. These are like experts in their fields. These are the people who wrote the seminal papers, and they're teaching you on like Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. It's like not a postdoc, it's not an adjunct, not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's something very, very cool about, reading a paper for class and the main author is your professor, right? I mean, that was like market microstructure, and, Larry Gloston, who I think is now retired, but, he built one of the key models in that space. So it's just very cool. And you really cannot, overemphasize the importance of the quality of the faculty, which is awesome across the board, and maybe that's expected from Columbia, but you'd be surprised, at various programs who you actually get taught by. So the fact that all of these faculty are really hands-on makes all the difference. And then kind of along the same lines, I think that just the day-to-day experiences with the other people in my cohort was really important. Grad school could be tough. Problem sets could be tough. So to have kind of a core group of people that to go through the experience with, who are in the same classes as you, working towards the same internships as you, it genuinely was not at any point a competitive environment. It was very collegial because everybody kind of had their own niche, right? I'm not going to go trade like commodity futures in London, so that there's no competition there for the guy who wants to do that. Instead, we're just empathizing over the like micro problem set that we have. So I can't speak highly enough about how much care goes into the selection process for the people that are admitted. Yes, in terms of academic rigor, but also just in terms of how curious they are, empathetic they are, kind they are. It's the kind of people that you want to be with. And given that these are relatively small programs compared to some of the other master's and MBA programs, you really will get to know each of them. And that support system is really important. That's kind of my...
Great, great, great. Thank you all for sharing that. I'm happy to hear that, some of the points that you guys have mentioned are the ones that I talk about during the webinar. So happy to have supporting data here. Now let's shift gear a little bit and talk about your career after the MS program. So Cait and Neha, how do you think the MS program have helped you in your career so far? Kind of what impact did it have? And then also for Ben, how has the program impacted your experience during the PhD program?
I'll start this time, Neha, because I've been lurking. Absolutely essential to my career. I would not be where I am without it, without a doubt. Like I said, I went to my undergrad university was a public school in kind of a flyover state here in the States. Not a super robust alumni network, not a name on my resume that anybody was going to be particularly impressed by. I had a great experience, but I didn't have kind of the cachet that comes with a university like this. Yeah, I think that without the branding, network, academic foundation, and internship experiences that this program facilitated, there's no way that I'm in the seat that I'm in now. There's no way that I had, some of the jobs that I've had over the years. And it really is kind of the full package, right? I mean, the academics and the curriculum is super important. That's why you're coming to school probably as your number one reason, is to learn, right, from these great faculty. But it really is the whole experience, right? Like Neha said, having CBS on your resume, having the network that goes with it, meeting the faculty, meeting the speakers, it really is like the pivot point, right? If I think about my career and where I probably would have ended up versus where I am now, best decision that I made on a lot of different levels. And it's completely applicable to my day-to-day work. Honestly, I still have papers and like problem sets from 5 years ago, which maybe I'm just crazy, but they are helpful. But it's so much more than that, right? It really is kind of the holistic experience.
I think that the MSM, like PhD MBA classes, they played their role in giving me that leg up. The PhD courses really honed those technical skills. So when I kind of graduated, I was able to enter for example, not at an entry level position where the rest of my peers were actually starting. I was actually able to start as a senior analyst. So I already had, despite the fact that I was, coming in with no years of experience, that Columbia year still technically counted for something through the skills. And those same technical skills also helped me, I think, truly just climb up the ladder a lot faster than the average person at my company. So it really did open up those doors. And then you would think that, after a couple of years, you talk to your parents or you talk to your friends and you're like, are you actually using your class notes? And people normally snort at you and are like, no, of course not. I've learned everything on the job. But the funny thing is, over here, at least in the role that I'm in and the scope in which I kind of operate, I'm still looking back and thinking back to my MBA courses and using that in my day-to-day. So while the technical side and while the PhD courses, they had their time, and I'm sure I will, of course, continue to use them in the future. But I feel like they really benefited me in the early years in making me stand apart. Whereas now, while I'm in the room with all of the other super specialists around me who are trying to be really smart and trying to go and talk about all this value that they're adding, I now have a leg up thanks to the opposite, thanks to the MBA programs, because I have the soft skills I have the speaking skills. I know how to, sell something or explain why this is actually making sense without sounding too fancy with my words, and have the ability to kind of explain it to a grandma. Those kinds of skills only came from those MBA programs, from those MBA courses like managerial negotiations that force you in a position which you never really thought you'd be in, and then suddenly you will be. But guess what? You've already kind of role played it up in your head 5 years ago.
This is me. Let me talk a little bit about PhD program. So MSAFA is definitely very helpful, has a significant impact, especially for me who didn't have so much research exposure before I come to Columbia. So that, MSFA really smooths my transition into a research intensive environment. By providing me a much better, stronger foundation on the courses, rigorous courses, and really giving me much more technical tools so that I can conduct work and research that I'm doing now. Another fun, interesting fact is, since MSAFA is not only just PhD, the programs also give students a different perspective, a practical perspective as well. So that really allowed me to approach my research with not only, so some research you see nowadays are too far away from realities. They are not practical enough. So that gives me the perspective that I can sort of see, sort of decide on what is actually good research. I think plus nowadays, master and sometime pre-doc program, the RA program, are actually semi-mandatory before we start a PhD. I guess mainly because they want us to be more prepared, more practically trained for us to really think through, decide on if this is truly the journey you wanna go through. So overall, yeah, MSFA has great impact. Yeah, I like it.
Great. Thank you. One final question for me. I know we have a few people who are eager to ask you guys questions. So super quick, given that, the audience member are prospective students here, what is one piece of advice that you have for them? And then we'll open it up for Q&A.
I guess my advice is don't be holed up in your room. I think that for me, at least, coming out of the undergrad environment almost felt like I was coming out of school, because how in school and also in undergrad to an extent, you have a fixed timeline. You're living with roommates. You're in that little bubble of school, of structured learning. With Columbia, which is like in the bang in the middle of the city, there is no structure consistently every single time. There are sometimes night classes, there are sometimes afternoon classes, there are sometimes classes that don't even happen in a day. There'll be gaps in a time period. Don't use that time as catch-up time on Netflix in your room. Use that time to be in the halls of Columbia, in the halls of your other peers. Because it can be very easy to kind of be like, oh, I'm tired, I'm just going to be at home. But just losing, wasting time that you could be networking, that you could be socializing and making friends, and that you could be, using New York's property value in your favor.
Yeah, maybe just related to that, I think my piece of advice would be not to be too caught up in your grades, your academic success, right? And I know it's very difficult because we're all high achieving and we all are used to getting really good grades and we want to continue to do that. And I'm not saying don't go to class or study, please do. But especially for grad school, it is so much more important that you understand the information that's being taught than that you get a good score on a problem set. Because you're there, you're spending time and money to get the knowledge and the information, right? Not to go home with like a 10 out of 10 on your paper. obviously those things are correlated, but really there is a big difference between people who engage with class time and assignments as a way to get the material, and people who are caught up in how did I do. And I definitely was in that second camp for a lot of first year, and it was really stressful because my grades were like fine but not excellent, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm failing. And no, right, that's really, it's very different from undergrad. Having been in the industry now for several years, nobody cares, nobody asks. Your GPA literally does not matter. The exception might be if you do want to maybe go on to a PhD, it will be more relevant. But I can, in fact, my bosses have explicitly said, don't tell me, I don't care. I don't know what that means. Like, don't, So I think it's a little bit of an adjustment from all of the work that you did to get to this place, to kind of say, okay, what really matters is the knowledge and experience that I walk away with, not my GPA. But I think the sooner that you can transition into that, the better. And it's related to what Neha said too, right? That don't be so holed up in your room or in the library. Again, you'll spend a lot of time in the library, but there are things to be learned outside of just checking off every single box on every single little piece of homework. This is my advice.
Okay. I think what I will give to the prospective students is, well, also from my experience, I think Columbia will offer you guys an incredible range of opportunities, from clubs to networking events, special class speakers, this and that. So it's very easy to get overwhelmed. So I think it's important to prioritize what aligns best with your career goals and your personal growth. So just don't feel pressured to do everything. So instead of do everything, choose the experience that will truly add value to your career, to your personal growth. So that'll be it.